Every time I read this story in the Old Testament, it strikes me as one of the most disturbing passages in the entire Bible. It's intense, unsettling, and emotionally heavy. Because of that, this story may not be suitable for young viewers, and it may bring up difficult emotions. The story comes from Judges chapters 19 through 21. Many people are familiar with chapter 19, but very few read what follows. And yet, the lessons from the entire account are crucial, especially because of how dark it becomes. First, let me tell you the story. Then we'll talk about what we can learn from it. The account begins with a repeated phrase found throughout the book of Judges. In those days, Israel had no king. A Levite was living in a remote part of the hill country of Ephraim, in northern Israel. He took a concubine from Bethlehem in Judah, far to the south. At some point, the woman was unfaithful to him and returned to her father's house in Bethlehem, where she stayed for 4 months. Eventually, the Levite decided to go after her and bring her back home. When he arrived, her father welcomed him warmly and urged him to stay. Day after day, the father delayed their departure, insisting on one more night of hospitality. Finally, the Levite said he had to leave. So they set out, and that's when the tragedy begins. As they traveled north, night began to fall near the city of Jebus. The servant suggested they stop there, but the Levite refused. He didn't want to stay in a foreign city, so they continued on to Gibeah, a town belonging to the tribe of Benjamin. They arrived at sunset. Shockingly, no one offered them a place to stay, something almost unheard of in Israelite culture. Eventually, an old man saw them sitting in the town square and asked why they were still there. When he learned no one had taken them in, he invited them into his home. Everything seemed fine, until night fell. Suddenly, wicked men from the city surrounded the house, pounding on the door. They shouted at the old man, demanding that he bring out the Levite so they could sexually assault him. The old man pleaded with them. He begged them not to commit such an evil act against his guest. In a horrifying attempt to protect the Levite, he offered his own virgin daughter and the Levite's concubine instead. What happens next is almost unbearable to read. The mob ignored him. The Levite pushed his concubine outside, and the men raped and abused her throughout the entire night. At dawn, they finally let her go. Barely alive, the woman made her way back to the house and collapsed at the doorway. In the morning, the Levite opened the door to leave. There she lay, motionless, her hands resting on the threshold. He said to her, "Get up. Let's go." There was no answer. She was dead. The Levite placed her body on his donkey and returned home. Then, in an act meant to shock the nation, he cut her body into 12 pieces and sent one piece to each of the 12 tribes of Israel. The reaction was immediate. Everyone who saw it said, "Nothing like this has ever happened, not since Israel came out of Egypt." But the horror didn't stop there. In chapter 20, Israel launches a civil war against the tribe of Benjamin for defending the men who committed the crime. The fighting is brutal. Thousands die on both sides. By the end, only 600 Benjamite men remain alive. In chapter 21, the other tribes realize something terrifying. The tribe of Benjamin is on the verge of extinction. There are no women left for the surviving men. Instead of seeking God, they make another series of disastrous decisions. They massacre the people of Jabesh Gilead and take 400 young women to give to the Benjamites as wives. But 200 men still remain without wives. So they devise yet another plan. They tell the Benjamites about a religious festival where young women will be dancing. During the celebration, the remaining men are instructed to kidnap the women and take them as wives, technically avoiding breaking their oath. One terrible decision leads to another. Innocent people suffer again and again. Entire cities are destroyed. Women are abused, stolen, and forced into marriages. All of this unfolds because people kept doing what seemed right in their own eyes. And yet, the book ends quietly. The Benjamites rebuild their cities. The tribes return to their homes. Life continues. The final verse of Judges sums it all up. In those days Israel had no king. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Here is the lesson. You can choose your actions, but you cannot choose their consequences. Every decision creates ripples that affect far more people than we ever expect. Even in the midst of humanity's darkest failures, God still shows mercy. But mercy does not erase consequences. Stay close to God. Because when people drift from Him, the cost is always higher than they imagine. See you in the next video. God bless you.